Okay, praises be to our loving Father that we are able to gather once again to study His words. Welcome to the BQA, the Bible question and answer, brought to you by the Assembly of Yahusha. Today, we're going to ask the question, is Yahushay the true name of the Messiah? Before we go ahead and proceed, let us first offer a prayer of thanksgiving. Almighty and merciful Father, thank you so much for your blessing. Thank you for giving us the opportunity today to proclaim your holy commandments. We believe, Father, we have been gifted with your Holy Spirit that we may discern truth from error. And so we will do our best to exercise this gift, and in so doing, proclaim with conviction and faith what we firmly believe in. Please, Father, be with us as we continue to study, as we continue to teach, because, Father, your words feed and nourish our souls and strengthen our faith. So, our King Yahusha, we implore you to please be with each and every one of us. Give us the understanding and insight we need so that we can carry out our duties and obligations. Father, we believe that you have listened to our prayers. We ask and beg everything in the name of our Lord and Savior, Yahusha HaMashiach. Amen. Okay, brothers and sisters, thank you so much for attending our Bible study for today. We only have one question that we're going to be discussing today or answering. And it's the question, is Yahushay the true name of the Messiah? As you know, we belong to the Assembly of Yahusha. And so we believe the name is pronounced Yahusha and not Yahushay. However, there are those who are claiming, believing, and proclaiming that the name is Yahushay and not Yahusha. And so this was the question that was given to me. And I just want to post it for you to see. It says definitely not Yahusha according to, not going to mention the name, but he's one of our brothers. So I have nothing against him. But nevertheless, it's a question that was raised. And so it is our duty to answer the question that was asked. What can you say for us? So there's the link. I click the link. It takes you to this Facebook post. And it says the following. Yesharal, know that there is no other name under the Shamayam by which man shall obtain salvation other than the name of the Malak, king of Yesharal, Araya, lion of Yehuda, Ban, son of Yahuwah, that at the name of Yahushay, every knee shall bend in the Shamayam, on the earth and under the earth. His true name, according to the ancient Paleo script, is Yahushay. There is no silent A in Ibari. The letter Ayan, which looks like an O, is pronounced as I, not but I. And here is the breakdown. See the attached Paleo Ibari script list. We'll look at that later on. And so here's the breakdown. You get the Y, letter Yad, A, letter Abal, U, letter U, the Shayin, letter Shan, and then the I, which is the last letter of Yahusha, and it's pronounced according to him as I. So Yahusha, put together, his wonderful and precious name reads Yahushay. not Jesus, Jesus, Yeshua, Yahshua, Yahoshua, Yahushay, and definitely not Yahusha. His eternal name is not to be changed, substituted, adjusted, surrogated, replaced, covered in any language. It is transliterated. As surely as Yahuwah lives, the name of his beloved Son, our King and Master, Malakanu, Adanayu, is Yahushay. Allah, Yahuwah, Allahi, Yesharal, Ayuam, Ahal Yahushay, Allah Yahushay, Malak Sidak, Ay Ulam, praise Yahuwah, mighty one of Yesharal forever, praise Yahushay, King of righteousness forever. So according to this post, one of our brothers, he has his own belief concerning the name of Yahusha. And of course, in the Assembly of Yahusha, we're not here to mock anyone's beliefs, but at the same time, it is my duty as the minister of the Assembly of Yahusha that whenever there's a doctrine that I do not believe in, I'm not saying I'm right and everyone else is wrong, but of course, I have to choose what to believe according to what I understand, according to my reasoning, according to the Spirit that has been given me. And so acting upon the Spirit given to me by Yahuwah through Yahusha, I need to respond to this query because it is my duty to protect the Assembly of Yahusha. And in this post, it specifically mentions that it is definitely not Yahusha, that the name of the Messiah is definitely not Yahusha. If that's the case, then we've been calling on the wrong name all along. And so we need to look into this very topic, and we need to really analyze what the name and how it's pronounced according to the teachings of Scripture. So this is the Paleo-Hebrew script of the name of our King. We know it is pronounced Yahusha, at least that's what I believe. I believe it is Yahusha and not Yahushai. However, this post questions the Yahusha pronunciation and says that's wrong. Instead, it should be Yahusha. And so how do you get from this paleo script to Yahushai as its pronunciation? Well, let's take a look at the individual letters of Yahusha. We begin with the Yad, and then the Abal, and then the U, and then the Shan, and then the Ayan, or the Ayin. Okay, so that's how it is broken down. And so letter by letter, you have the phonetics or the phonemes. And so when you put it together, it's, according to him, it spells, or it is pronounced Yahushai, because the last letter, which is the Ayin, or to him it's the Ayan, it is pronounced as I, right? And so the last letter of the name of Yahusha that looks like an O is pronounced I. So you have, instead of Yahusha, you have Yahushai. And according to him, his eternal name is not to be changed, substituted, adjusted, surrogated, replaced, covered in any language. It is transliterated. I believe that statement, but I also believe our King Yahusha is merciful. I don't think he's going to blot out our name from the book of life if we somehow mispronounce it. I believe when it comes to the revealing of the name, its purpose is for us to relate to our King Yahusha by our desire to get to know and refine our knowledge of his name. If by some error we mispronounce it because of our accent, because after all, we all have accents. Some have Visayan accents, some have Japanese accents, some have the English accents, Australian accents. If we, because of our accents, somehow mispronounce it, I don't think we're going to have our names blotted out from the book of life. However, having said that, I think it's an important topic to look into. And so we need to know, is it Yahusha or is it Yahushai? Well, basically, the only way we can determine which one is which is by looking into the last letter of that name, which is the Ayin. Because if it is pronounced I, then it's Yahushai. But if it's pronounced with a then it should be Yahusha, right? And so how is the last letter, the Ayin, the one that looks like an O in Paleo-Hebrew, but looks like a Y in modern Hebrew, how is it actually pronounced? Because according to our brother, there is no silent A in Ayabari, the letter ayin is pronounced as I. And this is according to Paleo-Hebrew scripts. So if you read the name in Paleo-Hebrew, guided by the pronunciation offered by Paleo-Hebrew scripts, which he calls manakafe, which we will talk about later on, the way you pronounce it is with an I. And so you have Yahushay. And so what you have there in the center is the script of the last letter of our king's name. It is the ayin. In early Hebrew, it looks like an I with the pupil of the eye. And then it goes to Middle Hebrew, which is the Paleo Hebrew, from about 1000 to 400 BC. That's where it was mainly used. Paleo, 1400 BC. They lose the dot in the middle of the eye, right? And so you see the transition. And then they go to captivity, and then they develop the block script, and so it becomes a Y. And then you have the modern script. They make it look fancy. And so you have the evolution of the script, how it looks like. However, what we want to know is not how it looks like, but how it sounds like. And so when the scripts evolve and transition from one era to the next, did it also change in the way it was pronounced? In other words, we need to know, well, was the ayin, the last letter of our Savior's name, ever pronounced as I, according to linguistic, archaeological, and historical research? In other words, what do Hebraic linguists say about the letter ayin? To be quite honest with you, I'm not a linguist. I'm not an expert in ancient Hebrew. I'm not an expert in Hebrew, and I don't pretend to be. And so I rely on the research of people who know about ancient Hebrew, right? Because after all, why would you ask someone else? And so we will look at it, test it to see whether or not it makes sense. Because after all, there are many scholars, there are many researchers. If there's conflict in the research, it emerges in the research. And we can kind of see and kind of make sense of everything that they are able to uncover. And so let's look at the ancient Paleo script, because that is his basis. After all, he says, according to the ancient Paleo script, it should be Yahushay. And so what is Paleo Hebrew all about? Well, according to Omeglot.com, which is a website where they have all these different languages, and they study all these different languages, and they have a section on Paleo Hebrew. The Paleo Hebrew alphabet was used between about 1000 BC and 135 AD to write ancient Hebrew in the biblical regions of Israel and Judah. It developed from the Proto-Canaanite script. And so before there was Paleo Hebrew, there was the Proto-Canaanite script. So the Proto-Canaanite script came before Paleo Hebrew. So you have the Canaanite script, Phoenician script, and then comes the Paleo Hebrew. The earliest known inscription in Paleo Hebrew was found on a wall in Tel Zayit in Beth Guvrin Valley in southern Israel in 2005. It dates from about 10th century BC. By the 6th century BC, the Paleo Hebrew alphabet was gradually replaced by the imperial Aramaic alphabet, which developed into the Hebrew square script. This was because of the Babylonian captivity. When the people of Yasharal, when the people of Elohim were captives there in Babylon, they adopted a square script, which eventually becomes the modern Hebrew script of today. So the Paleo Hebrew alphabet continued to be used for some texts of the Torah and also on coins until the 2nd century AD. But it was mainly used between 1000 BC to about 400 BC. So that's Paleo Hebrew. And so the people of Elohim during this span of time, 1000 to 400 BC, and so we know the Torah was written before 1000 BC, right? But Paleo Hebrew came along around 1400 BC. It eventually evolved into the square script because of what again? The captivity. And so the script began to change. And so Paleo became the square script, becomes modern Hebrew. But before Paleo Hebrew, there was a Proto-Hebrew. which is the Hebrew that was before Paleo, which was pictographic in nature, 2000 BC and way before 2000 BC. And I want you to notice how the pictures of the letters change from 2000 BC to 1000 BC to 400 BC. Look at the ayin, right? At first, it has a circle with a dot, then just a circle, and then into a Y, right? And so there was a transition in the script. However, how about the sound? The sound of the script, or the sound of the letter. According to modern Hebrew, the alphabet of modern Hebrew, how does ayin sound? Well, this is a chart of the modern Hebrew alphabet. You notice all the letters have like a consonant, right? Letter S, letter N, letter M, letter L, letter Q, except for Aleph and Ayin. What does it say concerning Aleph and Ayin? It says silent. So according to the modern Hebrew alphabet, it is a silent letter. That's modern. Well, how about the ancient alphabet? Again, I'm not an expert on linguistics. According to ancienthebrew.org, what you have there is the pictographic Hebrew. And look at the sound it makes. What does it say? Silent. Modern Hebrew, ancient Hebrew, silent. According to ancienthebrew.org, the ancient picture for the ayin is this eye, right? And it's a picture of an eye. This letter represents the ideas of seeing and watching as well as knowledge, as the eye is the window of knowledge. The name of the letter is ayin, a Semitic word meaning eye. This letter is silent in modern Hebrew. There's no indication, this is an important point, there's no indication that the ancient Semitic had a sound for this letter as well, and appears to have been silent in the past. The Greek language assigned a vowel, O, to the letter, and maybe the origin of the number 0. As Hebrew did not have one letter for the O sound, the Greeks took this silent letter and converted it into a vowel. The early Semitic ayin evolved into the simpler O in the middle Semitic, Paleo, and remained the same in the late Semitic period. This letter evolved into the Y, looks like a Y, but it's not a Y, in the modern Hebrew script. The middle Semitic became O in the Greek and Latin. And so that's the evolution of the script, but the sound remained the same from the ancient pictographic ayin to the Paleo ayin to the modern ayin. It remained silent. And so we have here a chart from ancienthebrew.org, and it says the ayin is silent. There is the ayin, and it's silent for both the ancient and also for the modern. So it is a silent letter. Now, they even give a reason for why it is a silent letter. According to Hebrew for Christians.com, again, I mean, I'm in no position to really tell you from my own thinking and processing what should be and what should not be. There are experts when it comes to the study of languages, and we're just comparing what they have to say. This is what he says. Ayin, like the letter Aleph, is a silent letter. It is said that ayin sees, but does not speak, and therefore represents the attitude of humility, or anava. Anava begins with an ayin, as does the word for service, avodah, and yoke, all. On the other hand, ayin can represent idolatry, slavery, both which are born out of the heart of envy. And so you can see the way the vocabulary of the Hebrew language is built off of these symbols. These symbols have meaning, and you create meaning from the symbols, the pictographs. And this is what is unique about the Hebrew alphabet. So it is silent. However, and this is the most important point, when it says silent, what do they really mean by that? Does it mean it produces no sound at all? Because if it was really silent, then shouldn't it be Yahush, right? Not Yahusha. Shouldn't it be Yahush if it's silent? I mean, if the ayin is silent, it should not be Yahusha, but Yahush, right? Is it really silent? Why did they say it is a silent letter? Let's go back to Hebrews for Christians. Remember, they said it's a silent letter, but what does it mean? The 16th letter of the Hebrew alphabet is called ayin, pronounced ayin. Like aleph, ayin has no sound of its own, but usually has a vowel associated with it. Note, ayin is known as a guttural letter, since it is pronounced in the back of the throat. Other guttural letters are aleph, hey, and chet, like aleph, ayin, is often untransliterated in English. So it does produce a sound, a subtle sound, but a sound nonetheless. There's a pronunciation that's made at the back of the throat. That's why it produces a guttural sound. And so ayin produces a sound, and it's often associated with a vowel. What could that vowel be? Well, according to Paleo Hebrew alphabet, right? They give you the chart here, and they show you how to pronounce it. And you can see the brackets. The brackets tell you how each letter is pronounced. So for most of these letters, except for two, it has the consonants, M, N, L, K, right? But you notice for aleph, they have a strange symbol. How do you pronounce that symbol? And look at for ayin. It's similar, but kind of like the mirror inverse, right? And so they have a translation, a transliteration, but it's a symbol that you kind of never seen before. And these are symbols that people who study language have developed so that people from different nations who study language can have the same standard by which to understand how things are pronounced. So a way for transcribing or transliterating how the sound is going to look like. And so here's another one. Look at aleph at the top. Look at ayin at the bottom, right? It has that symbol again. Well, what does that symbol mean? Ayin is this, and it also has that symbol as well. You have different kinds of symbols that different societies who study language use to kind of guide the person in making the correct pronunciation. So ayin is the 16th letter of the Semitic scripts, including Phoenician, Hebrew, Aramaic, Syriac, and Arabic. The letter represents, here it is, a voiced pharyngeal fricative. That's what that sign means. It's a voiced pharyngeal fricative. And so when you look at ayin, the different scripts, Phoenician, Hebrew, Aramaic, Syriac, but they all pronounce it the same way. Isn't that amazing? All these different languages pronounce ayin the same way. How? The voiced pharyngeal fricative. I hope I can remember it. Voiced pharyngeal fricative. I'm going to ask my wife if she can help me remember that. Voiced pharyngeal fricative. All right, so what is that? And so we can see aleph and ayin are related because they don't have really a sound of their own. If they do have a sound, it's very subtle. It's made at the back of the throat, a guttural sound. And so you have aleph and ayin. The aleph is at the top, ayin is at the bottom. Aleph is like a glottal stop, and the voice, and the ayin is like the voiced pharyngeal fricative. And so those are the corresponding symbols. So when you see those symbols, it's telling you how it's to be pronounced. Okay, so how is that pronounced for aleph? Let's take a look at aleph. I want you to listen. You hear that? I'll play it one more time. Aleph. It sounds like an to me. Doesn't sound like an I, does it? How about ayin? How does it sound? Ayin. And So one is, aleph is like your regular and ayin is like like in log, right? So and Yahusha, right? Let's do it one more time. And let's do this one again. You know what? They kind of sound the same, doesn't it? They both sound like the letter A. Right? They both sound like the letter A. And so to simplify things, there are those who create a Paleo and modern Hebrew alphabet. They simplify things. You know what? It sounds like an A. And so look at aleph. It sounds like an A. Look at ayin. It sounds like an A. And so why make things difficult for the untrained ear? You can barely tell the difference, right? And so according to the Hebraic linguist, the ayin produces the guttural ah sound and not the I sound. It's the ah. This is why, according to Hebraic linguists, it's definitely Yahusha, not Yahushay. There's a big difference between Yahusha and Yahushay. And so based on all the charts that and the alphabets produced by all these different sources, they all agree it is the silent, or it's the voice pharyngeal fricative that sounds like an ah, a glottal ah, a guttural ah. So historical, cultural, and archaeological proof also teach that ayin is pronounced as a guttural ah and not an I. So we'll look in depth now. Why do these scholars, these linguists, why do they all agree? I mean, it's all of them. It's not like some of them. It's not like there's big debate in how it's pronounced. There's no debate. It is conclusive. It's not debating. So why do they come up? Why do they believe the way you pronounce ayin is ah and not I? Well, we're going to look at the historical, cultural, archaeological proof, and then later on the linguistic proof. Okay, let's go with this one first. From this book, The Ancient Hebrew Language and Alphabet, Understanding the Ancient Hebrew Language of the Bible based on the Ancient Hebrew Culture and Thought, written by Dr. J.A. Benner. And so this is what he says. He says, the ancient Hebrew alphabet has 4 characteristics. So he looked at all the archaeological data, the historical data, put it all together and looked for patterns. He used computer software to look at the patterns and to see what emerged. And so 4 characteristics of the ancient Hebrew alphabet from the Pro-Canaanite, the Canaanite, Phoenician, Paleo-Hebrew, those ancient Hebrew alphabets. And these are the 4 characteristics. Number 1, it has a pictographic form. So each early letter is an obvious picture representing something concrete. Okay, so this is how it looks like. So it has a picture. Like, for example, the first picture looks like a bull, an oxen, right? So it has a very specific picture. It is pictographic in form, unlike what we have for the English alphabet. It's not pictographic, right? What else? Number 2, second characteristics, meaning or mnemonic. The mnemonic meaning of a pictograph is the extended meanings related to the pictograph, usually related to the function rather than appearance of what the letter symbolizes. And so when they have a picture of these letters, it represents a function, because the people of Yasharal, well, they live in the land. They live with the experience of having to graze the field, tend the cows and the sheep. And so they basically live an agricultural life. And so when you look at the pictures, it basically depicts the activity that many people of Yasharal do, right? And so that's what the meaning is. So for example, the ancient picture of the letter I, this letter represents the ideas of seeing and watching as well as knowledge, as the eye is the window of knowledge. So it has a form. The form has a meaning. What else is the characteristic of the ancient Hebrew alphabet? Its name also is syllabic. Each pictograph is associated with usually a single syllable of 2 consonants. Besides this syllable being the name of the pictograph, it is also the Semitic or Hebrew word for what the pictograph symbolizes. So it's different from our English alphabet. Our English alphabet is just 1 letter, right? But when you look at the alphabet of the ancient Hebrews, it has a syllable form because it's composed of other letters. This is why when you look at this chart of ancient Hebrew, this is the alphabet of ancient Hebrew. You notice how each letter of the alphabet has syllables. It is syllabic. For example, ayin, it is composed of those three letters. I'm going to use the paleo form. And so the first letter is ayin. Second letter is yod. And then the last letter is nun. This is why it's pronounced ayin. You got the ah, it's pronounced ah. This is how you can tell it. Ayin is pronounced with the ah because it has the ah. And then what makes it sound like ayin is because there's a yod, right? Ai, and then a nun, which is pronounced with n. So ayin, ayin. A guttural makes it sound like an a. Ayin, ayin. Okay, and so that's the third characteristic, and the fourth characteristic is the most important one. What is the fourth characteristic? Concerning the sound, phonetic aspect of the ancient Hebrew alphabet. The first letter of the syllabic name provides a, what does it say? A singular sound for the purpose of forming words and sentences. So when you look at the Hebrew alphabet, it has different letters, right? Because it's a syllabic name. You take the first letter, in this case, it is the ayin, and use that to form one singular sound. And what is the sound? You got it. It is the voice pharyngeal fricative. And so it sounds like an ah with a slight guttural. So that's how the characteristics of the ancient Hebrew alphabet looks like, and it's very informative, especially the last part, because we know the sound of each letter is a singular sound. So let's go ahead and take a look at his post again. And it says Yahushay. When you look at the first letter, Yad, it is a singular sound, right? Yeah, yeah. Singular sound. Next one, singular sound. Ah, ah. Next letter, singular sound. Ooh, right? Next letter, sh, singular sound. It's a consonant. And then the last letter, I, if it's I, it's not a singular sound anymore. If it's I, it's actually two sounds. It is not a singular sound. What proves I is not a singular sound? Because you can get a out of I, right? Can you get a out of I? Yeah. Because when you have a, and then you add the Y, you get I. And so these are two sounds. And so you can get the I when you combine, for example, A and Y. You get I. As a matter of fact, in Hebrew, there is a word where it sounds like I. Exactly like I. What is that? The word I. And how do you pronounce the word I? Here it is.
Strong's H 335. I.
Yahushay. And so it's not one sound, but two sounds mixed together.
Strong's H 335. I.
And so linguists, that tells us that instead of Yahushay, it should be Yahusha, because the last letter, ayin, you produce the sound of the first letter of ayin, which is the fricative. Ayin. And so Yahusha, not Yahushay, because if it's Yahushay, then the last letter is not conforming anymore to the historical, archaeological, and cultural proof that was conducted by the researcher. Okay, now we're going to look at linguistic proof that the ayin is pronounced as a guttural I and not I. Remember, when we have the pictographic ancient Hebrew, which is the Proto-Canaanite Hebrew, or the pre-Paleo Hebrew, before Paleo Hebrew came into the scene, it was a different kind of language. And so what we notice is from 2000 BC to 1000 BC to 400 BC, the language changes, does it not? And when it changes, certain geographical locations will have similar languages. And so you have Canaanites, Hebrew, Aramaic, Arabic, Syriac, They're called Semitic languages because they all came from a common source. Guess what? They all have the letter ayin, and they all pronounce it as a voiced pharyngeal fricative. For example, the Phoenician alphabet. The Phoenician alphabet came before the Paleo-Hebrew, and the Phoenician alphabet, look at the ayin, what is it? The fricative, right? The guttural, the ah, something like that, right? The Aramaic alphabet, how is it pronounced? Same way, ah, not I. The Syriac alphabet, how is it pronounced? Same way, ah, not I. How about the Arabic alphabet? Same way, ah, not I. How about the Canaanite alphabet? A lot older. Again, it's ah, not I. And here's something interesting. Let's go back to this page. When we have the transition from different types of languages, from pictograph to paleo to square, there's a Semitic script that basically kept the form function of the Paleo-Hebrew. Because remember, the Paleo-Hebrew transformed into the square script because of what again? The captivity. But there's a group of people who spoke the same way, who had the same language from the times of Paleo-Hebrew up until the square script, even today. It didn't change. That's the Samaritan script. It remained the same. And according to the Samaritan script, they have an ayin. Guess what? How is it pronounced? The same way, ah, not I. That's why all resources based on scholarly, historical, linguistic, archaeological, and cultural evidence reveal that the ayin is either a guttural sound that sounds like an ah, but it's definitely not an I, right? So it is Yahusha, not Yahushay. Well, what then is the basis for the I sound for ayin? And so what did our brother use as a basis for the I sound for ayin? Well, let's go back to his post because he says, see, here is a breakdown. See the attached Paleo Ibari script list. And so this is his actual post. And you notice he attaches a picture. And in that picture, it is a page from a book. This book is Volume 1, Etymology of Ancient Biblical Hebrew. And it's about Manakathe symbols. And when you look at the how it's pronounced, the letter ayin, it is with the I. Okay, so what is Manakathe? Because this is the only basis. All the other sources are conclusive. All the other sources will tell you one thing. It is not I, but ah. Okay, except for this one. Manakathe. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but what is Manakathe? Well, it comes from this book, The Etymology of Ancient Biblical Hebrew, and it's written by Aithari. No, Aithari. I thought it was Ithare, but the first letter of her name is Ayin, and she believes it is pronounced I. So Aithari. So Aithari has a YouTube. You can watch videos if you want. But this is her book, The Etymology of Ancient Biblical Hebrew. And here is Aithari explaining to us what is Manakathe.
Because the Manakati language was founded in hand signs. Ancient Biblical Hebrew is the Manakati language. I refer to Manakati as ancient Biblical Hebrew, but it's not Hebrew. The Manakati language is the language before Hebrew. It's the language of Noah and his 3 sons. This is the language that all humans in the days of Noah, the days when his sons repopulated the earth, this is the language they spoke.
Okay, so it's very clear. What is Manakathe? It's the original language of man. During the days of Moses, they spoke Manakathe. And so Manakathe is the language of God, according to her, the language of Yahuwah. It is the pure language that was spoken of before the Tower of Babel. And so it was the language spoken of by the sons of Noah. How does she know that? You'll find out later. How does she know that? Anyways, what is another aspect of Manakathe? Well, according to her symbols, because she develops a symbol system for the Manakathe. And Manakathe has all these letters, and so it has different meanings of these letters. From when you look at it, it forms a sentence from birth and signs plural. And so according to her, mana cathe is not only the language, the original language, not only is it the language of the people of Elohim, it is also the language that is in nature a sign language, a hand sign language. It is a primitive sign language. So what is mana cathe? Basically, it is the original language of Yahuwah spoken by the people of God even before Moses, and it's based on hand signs, a primitive sign language. What is interesting is when you look at her book and you look at her scripts, it is the Paleo-Hebrew script, right? And so she takes the Paleo-Hebrew script and she gives her own narrative about how each of the scripts, which already existed, she did not create that on her own, it already existed, but she gave her own interpretation of what each of the symbols mean. And then she says that this is the language before Hebrew. This is the language during the days of Noah. But when we go all the way to the days of Noah, I don't think there was Paleo-Hebrew yet. Right? There was no Paleo-Hebrew yet. Because before Paleo-Hebrew, there were the pictographic ancient Hebrew. And so Paleo-Hebrew came after the pictographic, according to the history, according to the archaeology. This is where there's an evolution of how the scripts look like. Look at the top. It looks like an eye. Look at Paleo-Hebrew. They lose the dot inside the middle of the circle. And so there was a change in how the script looked. But she takes the Paleo-Hebrew and says, wait a minute, pictographic is not the one. Square script is not the one. Paleo-Hebrew is the one. This one existed even before the pictographic ancient Hebrew. Well, how do you make sense of the evolution of the scripts? Because when you look at the scripts from different time periods, you can see a clear evolution. And Paleo is not at the beginning, it's at the middle. And so how can that be the language of Noah, of Moses, of Adam and Eve, of Yahuwah? And so instead of hand signs, they're simply pictographs. She takes the pictographs of Paleo-Hebrew, gives her own interpretation and says, this is mana cathe, arbitrarily giving her own interpretation with no data whatsoever. It's not like she can go to a history or a historical document or an archaeological dig and say, look at this is why the script is done this way. It's like hand signals, hand signs, or primitive language, sign language. It's not, it's pictograph, not hand signs. But the question is, well, how did Aithari develop this primitive sign language? Because obviously it did not come from historical sources. She doesn't understand the evolution of the language, how it evolved, how it changed from one form to the next. And so when Paleo-Hebrew scholars, when Paleo-Hebrew teachers confront her about that, she kind of gets pretty sensitive. In fact, this is what she says when she's being criticized about her form of Paleo-Hebrew. This is what she says.
Shalom. This video is to give you a heads up that I'm going to explain to you the meaning of the Paleo-Hebrew word zarai. Now, zarai comes from manakati, the language of hand signs. The whole Paleo-Hebrew language comes from hand signs. So I'm the only one who can teach this because I'm the one whom Yah gave the revelation. Now, I'm making this video to give your Paleo-Hebrew teacher the opportunity to reveal to you the knowledge of the symbols. Now, I don't debate with anybody because nobody can debate me. Number one, I'm not teaching Hebrew. I'm teaching the language before Hebrew, the origins of Hebrew, which is manakati. If you think your Paleo teacher has one up on me, or if you're a Paleo Hebrew teacher and you think that you know Hebrew more than me, please explain to me the origins. Explain to all of us the origins of Zarai, each symbol. Let us know how you break it down, because I'm going to drop this knowledge in a couple of days. You know, let your teacher know, if they can break it down letter for letter, because I will.
Okay, so where does she get that information from? She gets that information, according to her, directly from Yahuwah through the Spirit. This is why when you question her, well, what's your evidence? She goes, you cannot debate me about the evidence because this came from my God. That is her claim. And so she does not use scholarly resources. In fact, she is vehemently against scholarly resources. She says, my knowledge comes from Yahuwah. And then he challenges the Paleo-Hebrew scholars and says, can you explain the meaning of these letters and how they produce words? Yes, they can. In fact, even before she was born, there's so much information about the meaning of those letters stemming back from the pictographic days, not just the Paleo-Hebrew, because when you look at the Paleo-Hebrew and the pictographic language, it's similar, but not identical. And so even before that, scholars have put together the meaning of each of the letters and how they produce different words. And so she's challenging these Paleo-Hebrew scholars, but she cannot be challenged because she claims, well, my knowledge does not come from general revelation. My knowledge comes from special revelation. It comes from above. So Ithari utters teachings that did not come from scholarly work or from general revelation. When I say general revelation, this is, because Yahuwah created the world and he reveals a created order for everything. And so a person who uses his mind is able to, using his wisdom, it can come up with an understanding of how things work and the meaning of certain things because of general revelation, right? But there are instances where special revelation is needed, which is through the Spirit, through the Bible. But Ithari, instead of relying on general revelation, she relies on special revelation, direct revelation from Yahuwah through the Spirit. Well, why would Yahuwah do that? Why her, right? Why did Yahuwah reveal to Ithari the language of Manakathe? Well, this is what she says.
This is a very important video for me, for you today. I'm here to tell you about the prophecy concerning me and the ancient Hebrew language known as Manakati. This prophecy is located in Zephaniah 3:9-10. I am going to read to you the King James Version of this prophecy. Then I will give you the correct translation. The King James Version is a mistranslation. Zephaniah 3:9-10. For then will I turn to the people a pure language, that they may call upon the name of the Lord, to serve him with one consent. From beyond the rivers of Ethiopia, my suppliants, even the daughter of my dispersed, shall bring mine offering. What does that scripture mean? Those two verses are very confusing because the King James Version mistranslated it. This is the proper translation.
And of course, you'll find the proper translation in her book. She claims that she is the fulfillment of a specific prophecy. And according to this specific prophecy, she has something to do. She's going to give the gift of Manakathe. And so she is the daughter of a diaspora. And she is prophesied to fulfill Zephaniah 3:9-10. And she read Zephaniah 3:9-10 in the King James. I'll read it in the New King James and see how she twists and reinterprets the translation of Zephaniah 3:9-10 so that it points to her as the fulfillment. How convenient. Here is Zephaniah 3:9-10. This is what it says. For then I will restore to the peoples a pure language, that they all may call on the name of Yahuwah, to serve him with one accord. From beyond the rivers of Ethiopia, my worshipers, the daughter of my dispersed ones, shall bring my offering. So that's what it says in Zephaniah 3:9-10 in the New King James Version of the Holy Scripture. So I'm going to put this to the side. That's Zephaniah 3:9-10, right? That's the actual translation in the New King James. But she gives her own translation at the bottom. And she even says, my translation of Zephaniah 3:10. I mean, what if I gave my own translation of scriptures? What if he gives his own translation or she gives her own translation? What would happen to the Bible? You can make it communicate whatever you want. right? So let's take a look at her translation, Zephaniah 3:9-10, according to the Ithari translation. For then will I return to the people a pure language, for all to call upon the name of Yahuwah, to serve him with shoulder to shoulder from beyond to river of Cush. Ithari, she's there. Ithari, daughter of the diaspora, shall bring Manakathi, or Manakathi, Manakathi. And so that's how she translates Zephaniah 3:9-10. So according to her, this passage is about her, Ithari, the daughter of the diaspora. According to the prophecy, what will she do? She will give the gift of Manakathi, which is a pure language. And so Manakathi is a unique sign language. And by teaching this sign language, people will learn to call upon Yahuwah and serve him shoulder to shoulder. And so that's her interpretation of Zephaniah 3:9-10, or I should say her translation of Zephaniah 3:9-10. But as what we always do in this show or in this program, we test it, right? So we need to test Zephaniah 3:9-10. So we're going to ask these questions. In Zephaniah 3:9-10, is the word Ithari referring to an individual person? And is the daughter of my dispersed mentioned in Zephaniah, is that a specific individual woman, like a daughter? And lastly, is Manakathi a pure language, according to Zephaniah 3:9-10? So let's test it, shall we? Zephaniah 3:9-10, first of all, is Ithari an individual person? Let's look at Zephaniah 3:9-10. You have the New King James on the top, her translation of the Bible. And so on the top, it says, my worshipers. She translates that into Ithari. And so my worshipers becomes her. My worshipers becomes an individual. What's her name? Ithari. You see that? Well, how did she get Ithari from the Zephaniah 3:9-10 verse? Well, let's take a look at the Hebrew of Zephaniah 3:9-10. The Hebrew there for worshipers in the King James, it is suppliants, which is worshipers, the Hebrew word 6282, which is atar. You see that? Atar. That's the root word. Atar is the root word. Okay? Atar, that's the root word. And so when you look at Blue Letter Bible, it has two renditions in Hebrew, one at the bottom, one at the top. The one at the bottom is the root word. The one at the top, that is how the word is used in the actual passage. Because sometimes the root words change because it's conjugated. In this case, it's conjugated because they add the yod, right? And so the top is different from the bottom. And so in this case, it's not just suppliants, it's not just worshipers, but my worshipers because of that word. So that word, when you pronounce it, is actually athari. Athari. And so she got Ithari, right, from my suppliants, the Greek word Hebrew 6282. So let's take a look at that word. It means worshiper, it means suppliant. And so in other translations, like the one I read, it's my worshipers, right? And so what do we notice about Athari? First of all, it is a masculine noun, not feminine. I mean, I know Ithari is a female, right? A daughter. So here we have a masculine noun. Not only that, it is a plural. This is why it's called my worshipers. And so it's actually referring to a group of people, not one individual, and especially not a female individual, but many people. That's why you have the yod, my worshipers. But she takes my worshipers, Athari, and converts Ithari into a name. And so now she's able to say, look, that's me. When in fact, Ithari means what? What does Ithari mean? It means my worshipers. This is why when you look at the passage of Zephaniah 3:9-10, it's not speaking about a person named Ithari. It's not. It is simply absent from the Hebrew word. It's not there. The Hebrew word atad in Zephaniah 3:10 is not referring to an individual female. To insert aithari as a name of a person who's an individual female into the passage, that's a gross error and interpretation, and it's blasphemous to the passage, right? It's my worshipers. That's what aithari means. That's what atari means, my worshipers. It doesn't mean a female whose name is aithari. You get it? Okay. So Zephaniah 3:10 is actually referring to the restoration of true worship that will be given by the remnant of Yahuwah's people. It's not referring to an aithari, an individual female who's going to bring manakafi. Okay. So we tested the first part, and we know it's not aithari. It's not her. Okay. Let's go now to the second part. Is the daughter of my dispersed a specific individual woman? Because when you think of daughter, okay, I'm a daughter because she's female, right? But when it says daughter of my dispersed, is it actually referring to a single female, like a daughter? Well, why does the Bible say daughter of my dispersed ones? Now, what does it mean, dispersed ones or diaspora? It means the people of Israel, right, were scattered because of their sin. And so Yahuwah punished his people, Judah, his people, Israel. And so when we look at the context of Zephaniah 3:9 and 10, before we jump to Zephaniah 3:10, let's look at the context. What is this all about? Let's read Zephaniah 3:1 to 5. I think Aithari doesn't want us to read Zephaniah 3:1 to 5, but let's read it. Here it is. Woe to her who is rebellious and polluted, to the oppressing city. She has not obeyed his voice. She has not received correction. She has not trusted in Yahuwah. She has not drawn near to her God. Her princes in her midst are roaring lions. Her judges are evening wolves that leave not a bone till morning. Her prophets are insolent, treacherous people. Her priests have polluted a sanctuary. They have done violence to the law. Yahuwah is righteous in her midst. He will do no unrighteousness. Every morning he brings his justice to light. He never fails, but the unjust knows no shame. What do you notice about the passage? It has all the pronouns that refer to a female figure, right? She, her. She does not obey. She has not received correction. She does not trust. She has not drawn near to God. Her prince, her judges, her prophets, her priests have polluted the sanctuary. This is all an indictment of Yahuwah, an accusation of Yahuwah, right? To her. Now, who is the her and who is the she referred to there? Aithari? Is it Aithari? Is Yahuwah talking about Aithari when she mentions she and her? No. Who is the she and the her pronouns referring to? The oppressing city. What is that? Jerusalem. Jerusalem. Jerusalem is being portrayed as a woman because the people of Yasharah is portrayed as the spouse of Yahuwah. But then Yahuwah is judging her because she is not obedient and not loyal to Yahuwah. And so Jerusalem is referred to by the pronoun she and her. So Yahuwah is declaring judgment on Jerusalem. This is why to the oppressing city, you're going to be judged. But before after the judgment happens, take a look at what Yahuwah does. What does he do? For then I will restore. This is the work of restoration, brethren. I will restore to the peoples of pure language that they all may call on the name of Yahuwah to serve him with one accord from beyond the rivers of Ethiopia. My worshipers, the daughter of my dispersed ones, shall bring my offering. So the daughter is not an individual woman. The daughter are a group of people, worshipers. And so my worshipers, the daughter of my dispersed ones. The daughter refers to the remnant of the people of Yasharah. That's why the Hebrew word for daughter used there, for daughter of my dispersed one, is bet. Bet or bat. What an unusual name. Bat. Bat, right? That's the Hebrew word used for daughter, which can, of course, represent daughter or as a personification, description of character. It can be used figuratively. And the word daughter in Isaiah 1:8-9, where it says daughter of Zion, is also the same word, bat. It's also bat. And so here we know the daughter of Zion refers to what? Not an individual woman, but what? The remnant people of Zion. And so when it says daughter of Zion, daughter of the dispersed ones, it refers to a group of people, the remnant of Yahuwah's people, the remnant of the Yasharah, because it's the same word, right? It's the same word, daughter, bat. So the daughter of Zion or the daughter of Jerusalem refers to a remnant of Yahuwah's people. And this remnant are called worshipers. Why? Because there's a restoration. What's the proof? That the daughter of my dispersed ones is referring not to an individual woman, but to a group of people who will worship Yahuwah. We read 9-10. What do you want to do next? What are you itching to do now? Read 11-13. Let's read it. In that day you shall not be ashamed for any of your deeds in which you transgress against me, so their sins are forgiven. For then I will take away from you, from your midst, those who rejoice in your pride, and you shall no longer be haughty in my holy mountain. I will leave in your midst a meek and humble people, and they shall trust in the name of Yahuwah. The remnant of Israel shall do no unrighteousness and speak no lies, nor shall a deceitful tongue be found in their mouth, for they shall feed their flocks and lie down, and no one shall make them afraid. And so what we find here is the daughter of the diaspora is not referring to an individual female. It's referring to a group of people called the remnant of Yasharah, the remnant of the people of God, when they are restored. So the daughter of diaspora in Zephaniah is not an individual woman, but the remnant people of Yahuwah. Okay, pretty clear so far? Pretty clear. Let's take a look at the last one. Is mana cafe, is that referring to a pure language? I'd like to see that one. Let's take a look at Zephaniah 3:9-10. It says, there shall bring my offering, right? Now, what is that offering? Pure language. That's according to Ithari. So Ithari says the pure language is mana cafe. And so let's take a look at mana cafe. What does it actually mean? Well, it means the word used there is the Hebrew word 4503, and it's not mana cafe. The root word is mina, right? And you notice there is the yod. The yod is conjugated. What does yod mean again? My, right? That's why it's my offering, mine offering. And so when you add the y, it produces the pronunciation e, mana fi, mana kafi. And so she inserts somehow extra letters there, but it's supposed to be minahi, or mana kafi. Let's say mana kafi, okay? And so what does mana kafi mean? Is mana kafi, does it tell us what that means? Does it mean a special language, a primitive sign language? No, mana kafi means when you add the suffix yod, it just basically shows ownership, right? Mine, my offering. That's what it means, my offering. Mana kafi isn't a system of language. It doesn't say hand language or sign language. Mana kafi is simply an offering, my offering, okay? Because the word is gift, an offering to God. So when you look at the context, when you look at the entire chapter, you look at the context of scripture, mana kafi, the offering referred to there is not a primitive sign language, but it refers to giving offering to God in restoration of true worship. Because after all, if your worship, your offering is being accepted, what does that mean? Restored worship. And so Zephaniah is speaking about restoring a remnant people of God so that they can worship Yahuwah in a way acceptable to him. Mana kafi. It's not a language. And so how is this worship going to be restored? Well, according to Zephaniah 3:9-10, it says, I will restore to the peoples a pure language. Wait a minute. Is this an actual language, a system of alphabet and system and with rules that will help you determine how to put letters together and derive meaning from those letters? Is that what this is all about? Well, when we look at the Hebrew word for language, it's the word sapa, Hebrew word 8193, and it's actually the dominant meaning, the most used meaning of sapa is lip. Lip. Language is only used 7 times, but 112 times lip. It is a lip, right? And so by implication, language, because after all, when you move your lips, you're expressing a language. And it usually it refers to your talk in terms of your words, vain words. And so the word lip in the context of what we read is not referring to language. But if you use the word lip, it makes sense. Why? Because that word for lip, which is sapa, is also used in Isaiah. Take a look at Isaiah. So I said, woe is me, for I am undone, because I am a man of unclean lips. And I dwell in the midst of a people of unclean lips. For my eyes have seen the King, Yahuwah of hosts. Then one of the seraphim flew to me, having in his hand a live coal, when he had taken with the tongs from the altar, and he touched my mouth with it and said, behold, this has touched your lips. Your iniquity is taken away and your sin purged. And so here we have the use of the word lip, the same word sapa, right? This is the same word sapa that's being used. But when you use it in Isaiah 6:5-7, it's not referring to a language. It's referring to sin in speech. That's why Isaiah says, I have unclean lips. He's not saying that he has an unclean language. It's not talking about a system of language. It's talking about his words that he uses. It's corrupt, unclean, because he is not perfect, because he admits he is a sinful man, right? And so what does Yahuwah do? He cleanses his lips. Because when you cleanse someone's lips, you can now be consecrated. You are now consecrated to be put to use as an instrument of Yahuwah. And so when the lips are cleansed, the lips are restored. What does that mean? You're being restored back to service, just like the prophet Isaiah. So that's sapa, right? Using Isaiah. And so in Zephaniah, other translations, it says that I will give all people pure lips to worship Yahuwah. And so when your lip is cleansed, when your lip is restored, it means now you're worthy again to worship Yahuwah and give him an offering. Get it? Right? This is why in other translations, look, that I will purify the lips of the peoples, that all of them may call on the name of Yahuwah. And so when one's lips have been cleansed, we can now worship Yahuwah, call on his name. This is why in Zephaniah 3:9-10, when it says restore to the people's pure language, it's actually referring to lips. What's the proof? It's referring not to a system of a language, but to one's speech, one's lips. What's the proof? Context. Look at the context, 11-13. When Yahuwah restores the daughter, when Yahuwah restores the worshipers, remnant Israel, look, and speak no lies, nor shall a deceitful tongue be found in their mouth. And so there's going to be a purifying of the mouth, a purifying of one's speech. No lies, no deceit in their mouth. And so it's purified. And so it's purified. The lips have been purified so they can call on the name of Yahuwah, so that they can render true worship to the Father. And so when we look at Zephaniah 3:9-10, brethren, it does not speak about a woman named Ithari who will give the primitive sign language of Manakathi to be able to call upon the name of Yahuwah. That's not what it says. What it says is this. It speaks of the restoration of the remnant of Yahuwah's people who will call upon the name of Yahuwah. Who could that be? I'll let you process that, think about that for a while. Now let's go. So, Why are we discussing this in depth? Because when we discuss Yahushay, I'm not really particular if you mispronounce, but the reason why we're really going in depth is because there's a great danger. What makes Aithari and her teachings a danger to our faith? Not just the Yahushay part, but her teachings in general. When you go to her YouTube page, you will find this. What do you notice about that page? This Aithari person, this person who calls herself a prophet, he's a prophet because she claims her knowledge does not come from education or from scholarly works. Her knowledge comes from who? Yahuwah. That's what she says. And so she's claiming the Spirit is giving her information. And so she's not a scholar. She's not a teacher. She's a what? Prophet. Right? And so here, look at what she says about Yahusha. Top 25 reasons why Yahusha is false. Imagine that. Yahusha was obese, an alcoholic, and a wine enthusiast. Imagine that. Yahusha dishonors his parents. Yahusha was a sinner. Yahusha was a false prophet. My goodness. Does it make you a little angry? That this person, Aithari, who claims to be a prophet, she hates our king. Why would you endorse her? Why? Oh, I like the scripts. Really? You gotta be careful here. Because if you give the devil an opportunity, what will he do? He will wreak havoc, right? The Bible says that we have to be careful because the devil roams around like a lion looking to devour. Aithari frequently in her videos denies, rejects, blasphemes our king, Yahusha. Why would we endorse her? Right? And this is what Apostle John warns us about, especially during these last days. Look at this. Dear friends, do not believe everyone who claims to speak by the Spirit. Pause. Who is claiming to speak by the Spirit? Aithari. Where did you get that information, Manakase? Not from the scholars. I got this from the Spirit. She claims to speak by the Spirit. But then Apostle John says, wait a minute, you got to test her. You must test to see if the Spirit they have comes from God. For there are many false prophets in the world. So the Apostle John tells us we need to be on the lookout. We need to guard ourselves from false prophets, not just false teachers, but false prophets. There's a difference between a teacher and a prophet. A teacher will teach material that he has learned from general revelation. But a prophet will teach material learned from what she calls special revelation through the Spirit. This is why when you look at the word false prophet, it's the Greek word 5578, pseudoprophetes. It doesn't say teacher, it says prophetes. What does that mean? One who, acting on part of a divinely inspired prophet, utters falsehoods under the name of divine prophecies. Isn't that Aithari? Right? Aithari utters teachings that did not come from scholarly work or from general revelation or from special, but she claims it's from special revelation, direct revelation from Yahuwah through the Spirit under the banner of divine prophecy. So Aithari claims to be a prophetess who receives special revelation through the Spirit from Yahuwah. The question is this: is Aithari a true prophet or prophetess? Well, how can we know? Apostle John says, test it. Test the prophets. How? Verse 2. This is how we know if they have the Spirit of God. If a person claiming to be a prophet acknowledges that Yahushua Christ came in a real body, that person has the Spirit of God. Okay? Does she acknowledge Yahushua? No. She blasphemes and mocks Yahushua. And so what does that mean? She doesn't have the Spirit of God. Well, how did she come up with all this knowledge? Different spirit. Not from God, but a different spirit. Well, where did that spirit come from? Because we know her material did not come from the scholars. It did not come from education, but from the spirit. What kind of spirit, though? Well, let's find out. But if someone claims to be a prophet, she does that, and does not acknowledge the truth about Yahusha, that person is not from God. Such a person has the spirit of the Antichrist, which you heard is coming into the world and indeed is already here. Brethren, fide represents a danger because the knowledge she gives comes from a spirit. But because she rejects Yahusha, it's not the spirit from God, but the spirit of the Antichrist. Where does that come from? The adversary, the devil, right? And so what do we need to do? Apostle John elsewhere says, I say this because many deceivers have gone out into the world. They deny that Yahushua Christ came in a real body. Such a person is a deceiver and an antichrist. We're not surprised that during our time there are deceivers and many antichrists. And so how can we tell the difference? Well, one who is an antichrist rejects Yahusha, and Apostle John wants us to be aware of these deceivers. Why does Apostle John emphasize that we need to be careful about teachers or prophets like fide? In verses 8 to 9, it says, watch out that you do not lose what we have worked so hard to achieve. Be diligent so that you receive your full reward. Anyone who wanders away from this teaching has no relationship with God. But anyone who remains in the teaching of Christ has a relationship with both the Father and the Son. Why must we be careful with people who claim to have the Spirit, but at the same time reject our King, Yahusha? The Bible says we need to do that so that we don't wander away from the teaching of Yahusha. Because if you reject the Messiah, you reject his teaching. If you reject his teaching, you reject the Messiah. If you reject the Messiah, you also reject the Father and the Son. And so you're disqualifying yourself from salvation, and you end up wasting what you worked so hard to achieve. This is how we got to protect ourselves from people who claim, they have the Spirit, but that Spirit is the spirit of the Antichrist. So there's a difference between a scholar. For example, there's a scholar, and this scholar doesn't believe in Yahusha, okay? But the scholar conducts research and has linguistic and Hebraic evidence or historical evidence, and so puts together a book. And from that book, there are nuggets of pieces of truth that comes from that book. That's okay, because it's from general revelation as a scholar, not special revelation from the Spirit. But if a person rejects the general revelation and says she has special revelation from the Spirit, and at the same time she rejects Yahusha, stay away. In fact, Apostle John said even this: if anyone comes to you, to your meeting, and does not teach the truth about Christ, don't invite that person into your home or give any kind of encouragement. Anyone who encourages such people becomes a partner in their evil work. Beloved brethren, if fide was alive during the days of the Apostle John, he will say, have nothing to do with that person. Do not bring her into your home. Do not bring her into your meeting. This is why, brethren, do not bring her. Do not endorse fide. Do not endorse her teachings, because her teachings are the product of a spirit, not from God, but the spirit of the Antichrist. And so we have to be careful. And while we wait for our King, because we are the bride, while we wait for our King, let us not let anyone mock our King. Let us not let anyone criticize our King. If we will endorse anyone who criticizes our King, how do you think our King will feel? We're the bride, and then we're having a relationship with someone who hates our King. How do you think the King will feel? Brethren, we have to be careful, because remember, the devil is going to be hard at work, and he's very cunning. And so let's read this final passage so that we can protect ourselves. The final passage of our studies today, in 2 Corinthians 11, 2-4, for I am jealous for you with the jealousy of God himself. I promised you as a pure bride to one husband, Christ. But I fear that somehow your pure and undivided devotion to Christ will be corrupted, just as Eve was deceived by the cunning ways of the serpent. You happily put up with whatever anyone tells you, even if they preach a different Yahusha than the one we preach, or, what does it say? A different kind of spirit than the one you receive, or a different kind of gospel than the one you believe. Apostle Paul says, be careful. We're waiting for the return of our King. Be careful, because there's someone who doesn't want us to receive the reward. Who is that? The serpent. What will he do? He will try to deceive us. How will he deceive? He will use a spirit of the Antichrist. We have to protect ourselves. How? By being pure in our devotion, being undivided in our devotion to our King Yahusha. Do not let the spirit of the Antichrist produce material and teachings that we will embrace that will lead us against our King, because it's the spirit of the Antichrist. We're not surprised. This is happening now because the devil does not want the assembly to be saved. And so we know the devil will do something to try and jeopardize our salvation. Don't let him do that. Test the spirits, test the prophets, test the teachings to make sure that we remain pure and undivided in our devotion to our Mashiach, Yahusha. Let us stand and we shall pray together. Everlasting Father, most holy and gracious Yahuwah, you are indeed great, almighty, filled with compassion and love. You always protect the welfare of the assembly. We know that we are going to be attacked. There will be many events in our life because we are the number one targets of the adversary of our faith. Help us to be wise, that we can overcome the cunning ways of the enemy. Help us to rely on your spirit, to rely on your scriptures, and teach us how to test all things. Help us, Father, to be aware of the works and wiles of the devil, and help us that we will put on the full armor, that we can remain faithful to you always. Our King Yahusha, you are our Savior, our Mashiach. We love you so much. When people mock you, we are hurt. When people criticize you, we are angry because we have a passion for you. When people who claim to be prophets ridicule you, we are hurt. We cannot side with them. We side with you. We are loyal to you and to you alone. O merciful Yahusha, be with us always. We know we will be tested when we feel overwhelmed sometimes. May you step into our life, lift us up and strengthen us once again, that we can all complete our race. Thank you for giving us guidance in the study of your holy teachings. Help us to be firm and resolute in our proclamation. You are Yahusha, the living Mashiach, King of Kings and Lord of Lords. Father, thank you so much for blessing our Bible study tonight. Continue, please, to bless the works of the assembly, that we can all be one in everything that we do. We ask everything, Father, in the name of our Lord and Savior, Yahusha HaMashiach. Amen. Okay, brothers and sisters, thank you so much for attending our Bible studies for today. Just a reminder, this coming Sunday, we have our Yahusha-centered integration of mind, body, and spirit for greater well-being. And so it's a way of learning how to have our King Yahusha be in our life, especially during those difficult times, so that we can overcome the suffering, the pain, the negative emotions, and sometimes rob us of our joy and peace. So this is for Sunday, June 25th, 1:30 p.m. It will be in person in Northern California. Hopefully you can join us in person, but if not, you can join us through Zoom, Facebook Live, and YouTube Live and Zoom. That is all. May Yahuwah Abba and Yahusha HaMashiach bless all of us.